Hello.
Good evening. Hey.
Hey, hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you. How am I?
Good.
Okay.
It's 10 o'clock at night and you're outside.
8 o'clock here. So,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering,
Yeah.
it's
Nice.
very smoky. The damn Canadians and their wildfires.
Is going to be much of the woods left up there?
I don't know, but apparently Canada's on fire, and they want to make sure we know, so they send their smoke down.
Yeah.
But it's been pretty bad for like 2 weeks. Not only is it hot, it's really hot, like it's never been. It's unbelievably hot. You wouldn't care. It's normal to you. I'm sure.
Yeah, we're used to it, yeah.
We're not. It's Northwest. We're like 50th for worst summer weather, i.e. best summer weather.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's at least it's a dry heat because you guys are smoked out like ham or whatever, right?
Yeah. It makes it kind of an oppressive, it's got a moist, weird feeling to it.
Interfering with your
doesn't
running?
Feel like dry. Yeah, injury interferes with my running. So.
Oh, not the smoke? Smoke.
No, but a little bit. But it is with most people. Yeah, it's kind of making coming back very difficult. It's hard to run in the heat and the smoke together.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, okay. All right. Well, we're here. We're gonna chat about the atheistic, naturalistic, evolutionary worldview, being whether it's possible, I guess, to live consistently within such a worldview. So I don't know if you wanted to give your personal worldview on those ideas.
Well, I did want to have a clarifying question, I guess. If we're talking about a true atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview, I assume you're going to want to avoid the assumption of determinism, because if everything is completely determined, we have no minds, then no matter what we do, first of all, you could say that worldviews don't exist. But even if you were to somehow label what happened as a worldview, it would be perfectly consistent because there would be no other option for every person that has their worldview. So every worldview would be acceptable and consistent, and it would be completely determined. So I assume you're going to try to work in some sort of atheistic, naturalistic, evolutionary worldview that allows for some form of free will. Is that correct?
Well, I would sort of say that is an outcome of an evolutionary naturalistic worldview, but nobody can live within such. Nobody can exist within or with the idea of determinism, right? I mean, nobody can fully accept that in their daily life.
Well, you would have to.
I mean, yes, if it's true, then it's true, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you are, despite how you might feel about it. So then we could say, well, you don't feel, you're unable to feel consistently with the way the world is. Yeah.
Which is perfectly consistent with determinism, because you would just be determined to not feel.
Yeah. Because there is no inconsistency with pure determinism, that every single action is determined whether you like it or not. But then again, whether you like it or not doesn't matter, because
it's also
that's just So I think that is an outcome of a purely naturalistic worldview, but nobody can accept that.
I would almost flip it around and say that would be the only purely consistent worldview that you could have. The atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview seems to me to result in the only consistent worldview, because every other worldview would require at least some sort of an exception. You would have to make a personal exception for, just for example, with giving some background and assuming you're comfortable with me labeling you as having a Christian worldview, you would have to make an exception for human beings when you're talking about things like morality. Well, that would be the main one, but in subjects like morality, you have to assume that human beings are an exception, because we understand that we don't hold non-humans to the same moral standards, which would be consistent. It seems like would be consistent with a God existing. So you have to make an exception, which would, to me, anytime you have to make an exception, then you're adding in an inconsistency. So only with the atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview do you have perfect consistency, because you have determinism, and only with pure determinism do you have perfect consistency.
Sort of, yeah. But I would say that the Christian worldview, you also have consistency, because you don't make an exception for humans. You say humans are separate from the rest of the world. They were created differently.
Would you say that
separately.
they are exceptional?
Well, you could use that term, but yeah. So we are. I am exceptional.
Yeah, just.
But the worldview that I would hold is that humans are separate in every way, like the consciousness, the soul, the morality. Natural rights exist with humans. They don't exist with animals. They don't. The things that we would apply reason, knowledge, intelligence, things like that, we wouldn't apply to the rest of the animal. And actually, I could get into that. We could say that this whole idea came out of a post on, I think it was your Facebook page, right? Was it yours?
It may have been. I don't know.
You were Joel.
Maybe Joel.
One of, yeah. So, and then there were third and maybe fourth parties that came in on that fifth.
So let's so if we both accept that pure determinism is by necessity consistent, we can just grant that, even though it's not consistency as we would both define consistency, it is in its own way consistent. So how do you want to present, if you can't, it seems to me that arguing that atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview leads to pure determinism, it doesn't make your argument plausible, because that seems to lead to a consistency of a sort.
Well, I would say I don't believe that is the world.
Right.
But I believe that if you believe that to be the world, then you should be required to live within that framework of determinism.
Okay, so
right?
We'll grant that if determinism is true, then the atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview is perfectly consistent, as is every other worldview.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. But again, I would say that even within that worldview, people that believe that cannot accept that. And so you would say that would be determined as well.
Right. So
you had no choice but to not.
So instead of just ending it there, let's say, for instance, I would go so far as to argue, even if it were not true that the world is perfectly determined, I would say that the atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview leads to that which is consistent, and at least more consistent than the alternative worldviews.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that even the people that do say that the world is determined, right, predetermined,
okay,
they follow that up with you don't know what it's going to be like, so just live as if it's not determined, which in and of itself is live inconsistently with your beliefs, essentially, right? So go ahead, pretend that that's not the real way it is, even though it is the way it is, right? And that kind of gets to what you were saying when we're talking about. I was talking with Chaz about the Pascal's wager, and you said the idea of living in a lie. So the person that believes in determinism but says pretend determinism isn't true would admittedly be living a lie, right. Essentially, right?
Right.
And unable to live within their own worldview.
If they denied that determinism was true?
Well, if they believed it to be true but wanted to live as if it was not true.
See,
that's kind of the outcome that they have.
It seems to me, I don't know how that would work. Like, if you believe that determinism is true, how you could live that it was not true. I mean, that just seems logically inconsistent. I would say that most people
And I would agree.
Most people do not believe that pure determinism is true. They would say that they're a compatibilist, or they believe that our actions are mostly determined. I would say most people argue that some version of the mind is true or exists, but not that it's a immaterial mind, but it is just maybe an emergent property of the brain, or that we're able to somehow be able to make independent decisions. I would say that most people, that is their belief, even if they understand that it's all determined. Most people would say that it's mostly determined.
Yeah, and I think most people believe they have free will, right? I have the freedom to choose whatever I want.
I would say that most atheistic, naturalistic, and evolutionary worldview, those who adopt that worldview, believe that they have the illusion of free will, not necessarily that they have free will, which I'm not sure in practice is significantly different, even if it may be philosophically different. But in saying that I have free will, or saying that I believe I have free will, and saying I believe I have the illusion of free will, the way that you would act or allow your free will to influence your choices would be the same. And just one recognizes that you don't actually have a choice. So, but that there's no other way to live, that we are wired through our evolution to have the illusion that we have free will.
And I don't think that most atheists think too much about that. I don't think they really think much about determinism. I don't think if I went out on the street and I found a lot of atheists, that very many of them would think in terms of determinism.
Well, I would,
but
that may be the case, but to me, I think atheism entails hard determinism.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the points I would make, is that, yeah, you really don't have a choice. And so following that, mm-hmm. Do you love your children? Do you love your wife?
I mean, I experience feelings of love, but I mean, do
you love your car?
As an eliminative materialist, if you're talking about what those are, I mean, how do you describe someone that's, if I were to ask you, how do you describe love? Like, how would you describe love? You would describe it most often in how it makes you feel, the pounding of the chest, the sweaty palms, the emotional connection that you have with someone, all of which are purely physical. So it seems to me that what we call love, once we try to define it, is actually just a series of physical reactions to someone that we're near with, or someone that we have a genetic relationship with, or, you know, it seems to me that there's no way to define love outside of the purely physical.
So the real romantic in you comes out. Yeah. Is that so? I would ask any atheist out there would you tell your wife or your spouse to be, or date or something like that? It's like, I have chemicals in my head that make my palms sweaty and my heart pound quickly, and I feel this strange feeling within my head. Do you feel the same? Will you engage in this contractual obligation between the two of us in front of a judge?
Some women find the truth sexy. Don't forget that,
okay? So, yes, next time you're rolling around in the hay, can see if that gets her going, right? But I just don't think it would.
But it seems to me that what we're talking
I think love is beyond that, though. I mean, I think love it's a willingness to sacrifice. It's, emotion is something that I think goes beyond the physical realm.
But you would do those things. You said the willingness to sacrifice, but I would say nearly every human being, given the option to sacrifice themselves, say for a child, would do that just out of reflex, or out of I don't want to say habit, but I would call it an evolutionarily built-in drive. So that is not, to say that to sacrifice themselves to something that's limited to only to those that we love is not something that I would say that is unique to those types of relationships that we would classify as love. So it seems like I'm not sure how you would go about. You could say that any person that is in love or has been in love, you could say, well, how did this work? Was it love at first sight? Well, it's love over time. I mean, it seems that there's similarities, but all the similarities are explainable through our evolution, through our similar brain chemistry, and we know that from where injuries can cause people to no longer love their loved ones. So I mean, it seems like if love was transcendent from our brain and was not something purely physical, then if you were to lose your memory, you wouldn't lose your love for an individual. If you were to lose your sight, or you lose your ability to smell, or lose something that helps you connect to that individual, your feelings for them, your love for them wouldn't change. And I would say that we would all understand that they do.
Well, I think love is also a function of knowing who someone is, and there's a lot that goes into it. But again, love for a human is different. Love for a spouse is different than love for a parent, is different than love for a child, is different than love for a car or a house or a computer gadget or something.
I mean, different in the sense that it stimulates different parts of our brain, maybe, but not different in kind. I would argue, I don't know how you would say that, love for a parent or for a child would be different. It's not like you have one feeling of love that's reserved for one people and a completely different, uh, hard line, different type of love for a child. I mean, there's similarities that overlap. There's experiences that you have differently with each person that's going to change how you feel. But I I would say that.
Well, I would say, your child is someone that you probably loved at the moment you saw it, right?
Well, I yes, but we also know that we're built to do that. I mean, women and men both experience chemicals that bond us to our children, and that's why you can love children that are not your genetic offspring, that they are adopted, or they're
But
that
it's
love
not
is
automatic.
different.
It's much more difficult.
Right. So if it's your own offspring, during that whole intense situation around birth, we release different hormones that lead us to bond with that child. That's why when mothers who their babies are switched at birth, they bond with the baby that they have. They don't recognize that this baby is different. It is just simply they're in the bonding, whatever baby they have, they will bond to. I mean, it's a beautifully beautifully physical thing. I don't know why it needs to be more. That's one of the things I always find interesting. I mean, I find it fascinating alone, just in the whole evolutionary aspect of it, that then to have to add on this whole nother immaterial aspect of it seems unnecessary.
So, we can,
We'll ask a question like this.
yeah.
Just a quick question on the topic of love. If I were to put you in an MRI or a brain scanning type machine, and I were to show you images of people that you would, and in one individual that you claim to love, I'm going to assume your wife, okay? So, and then I were to show you images of other individuals, your parents, your children, your friends, would I be able to tell simply by the areas of your brain that were activated which one of them you would say that you loved and which one that you would say that you were just friends or you wouldn't love? Would I be able to tell the difference?
That I don't know, but I can tell you that I do love them differently, right?
But would I be able to tell just by watching the areas of your
Yeah,
brain?
and that's I don't know, but
If
I'm saying that I do
sure, if
have different feelings for them.
I were to be able to show you an image and then say, okay, you love this person, but you're not physically attracted to them. This is an emotional. If I were to be able to tell you that simply by your brainstem, would you accept then that love is purely physical, or would you?
No, I would still have to say that there is more than just physical, because you can learn to love people. You can automatically love people. I mean, there's just a lot more than just the emotional. And I think, again, I think emotional goes beyond the brain itself.
To where? I guess that's where the question, like, what worldview do you have that allows for it to go beyond, and how would that be? And let's see and how is that more consistent than the naturalist worldview or the evolutionary worldview?
So I do believe there's an immaterial world.
Okay.
And for example, there was a scientist that did the study where he was poking on people's brains, making them raise their arm. And in some cases they tried to hold their arm down, and he asked them, what just happened? And they would say, you raised my arm. Right. So we can say that certain parts of the brain will send signals, electrical signals, down through the nerve cells. And yeah, we realize that there is a very strong material aspect to action. But when that thing is not there, when the guy is not there poking on the brain, where do those signals come from? And I would say that they come from thoughts, which I think are immaterial things. And people live as if they're immaterial things, right?
Well, I don't know what it means personally to say that something lives like they're immaterial. I mean, I don't personally believe that thoughts are immaterial things. I believe that they're completely material, and I don't think that makes them any different. I just think that those people that believe that thoughts are immaterial simply lack experience or knowledge of what thoughts actually are.
So what is the difference between a thought of killing my neighbor and a thought of baking him a cake?
The neurons in your brain that get activated.
So there's no real difference then, right?
I mean, there's a physical real difference. Like if you were to be able to map the entire brain, and you were to think them, I would be able to say, okay, well, this is the area of your brain that highlights when you're thinking about killing someone. This is one that's where your highlights about thinking of baking somebody a cake. This is the one that highlights when you're thinking about your neighbor. So I would be able to look and say, okay, you're thinking about baking your neighbor a cake. Oh, well, now you're thinking about killing your neighbor. They are physically different. I mean, and identifiable.
Okay, so they're physically different, but are they morally different?
I mean, no.
What is morals? No, they're not morally different, right? From a naturalist point of view, they're just different chemicals in the brain or whatever.
Yes.
Yet, we hold people morally responsible for killing their neighbor, and we hold them morally, I guess, gratified or something for baking their cake, right?
I mean, individuals hold them. I mean,
we throw people in jail for killing their neighbor, right?
We do.
But we don't throw them in jail for getting a cold. We don't throw them in jail for baking a cake.
Right. And
I actually call them nice people.
The reason that we do that is misconstrued. I mean, you would say that we do it because of moral. They broke a moral law, and where I would say we did it for the sake of the greater good, or because we as a group decided that these things are intolerable. I mean, we don't necessarily say that I would not necessarily say what an individual did is wrong to them. It is wrong for our society, and therefore we act on it. So it's not. I mean, that's the
like Nuremberg. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say Nuremberg. They used crimes against humanity, right? I mean, they used universal moral laws to prosecute the Nazis after World War II, and.
Well, I don't think that it's so far-fetched to say that there aren't. We talked about this before. I mean, that there aren't certain things we can agree on as human beings, and that say that we as a human beings agree that this is wrong. These people did it, so we're going to remove them from society because having them around is not good for our society. Even if we can accept that what they did, they thought was right, which, I mean, everyone, I assume, accepts that when criminals commit crimes, at least in the moment that they're committing it, that's what they think is the best thing for them to do, because no one would rationally do something that they thought at that time was something they shouldn't be doing.
And everybody uses the term wrong, right? I mean, I think you would agree. Everybody, and I say literally, everybody says that was right, that was wrong. Atheists, theists, everybody. I mean, you go on the internet, the people that are making fun of Christians saying that they're wrong, right? Or that Christians are evil because they do this or that. I mean, I see these all over, right?
You don't think that's just convention, and that,
well,
that it means different
thing, right?
thing? That it means different. When I'd say something is wrong, I mean, like if you were to give a context, what is something that you think is wrong?
Killing my neighbor.
Okay.
Right. With a baked cake.
So if I would say that is wrong, I would. You and I could both agree that is wrong.
On different levels, though.
I would say it's wrong for different reasons.
Well, but you wouldn't say it's wrong. You would say you don't like it, right? You just don't like it.
I mean, I would say that I think it's wrong, or that my society thinks it's wrong. I would not assume that the person that did the crime would think that it was wrong. See, that's where I think that the difference comes in, and that's where I think, the naturalistic worldview is superior to the Christian worldview or the religious worldview. Is you would assume that when the murderer kills somebody, you assume that they know what the action is that they're doing is wrong. You assume they have an immaterial mind that recognizes God-given right and wrong. So when they do that, they know that they're doing something wrong. I think that's absurd. I think.
Well, I would say most criminals, when they're doing it, know they're wrong. I mean, if you go to prison, I mean, yeah, the joke is that there's no guilty people in prison, right? But the reality is that people that actually go to prison and minister, they say it's the easiest place to minister because these are people that realize that they did do something wrong, that they did do an evil act. And that is a universally evil act, not something that society decided was wrong, but they've thought, well, because again, if there's no difference between baking a cake and baking a poison cake, then why do we have prisons at all? Because I guess there are behavior that people just don't like, but there's a lot of things we don't like. And who are you to force your views on me?
Well, we're the society.
Why can't I? But can I okay, so I could force my views on you if I got big enough, right?
Of course.
If I got enough people around me.
Of course.
And you wouldn't have any problem with that, because I think you would have a problem with that.
I would personally have a problem with it, but that wouldn't change everything. I mean, we've even seen it, even in our lifetime, how things that were considered wrong now no longer are considered wrong. You would say, I don't know how old you are. I'm 34. When I was 10,
I'm older than you, actually.
When I was 10, being homosexual, my whole community thought that was wrong. Now, 34 years later, an individual in my community that's homosexual, no one would think that it was wrong. So it's just like, to me, it just seems like that's changed. So what's right and what's wrong changes by the amount of people that agree that it's right and wrong. It seems to be an obvious thing it boggles my mind how people say, well, no, even though it's obvious that the majority of people don't think that it's wrong anymore, we're still going to say that it's wrong based on this set of. Go ahead.
So, but people that say it's right, that today they would look back those people and call them, well, they often do. They call them wicked or nasty or evil or something, right? For believing it to be wrong.
I mean, in my community, it's not that they think that they're evil. It's just that they think that they're antiquated is not the right word, that they're unenlightened, I guess. And it's not so much that people think that something is right now. It's so much to think that something isn't a moral issue anymore.
So then they're kind of saying that right and wrong is subjective to society, but also subjective to time periods.
Well, I mean, society.
Like it was. I mean, it was right to believe it was wrong back then, and it's right to believe it's okay now.
And I think that's a key difference when we say that we that
Well, you
we
can't say it's wrong. I mean, you can't say it's wrong,
and I don't
right?
think it's saying that it's right. That I think it's just
And you
that's
can't say it's wrong to throw homosexuals off buildings either, right? I mean, that's right in their society, in
if
certain societies.
in certain societies, if that is what they choose to be, I mean, if that is what they have decided, I can personally think that it is wrong. But if their society thinks it's right, I mean, that seems clearly that if their society accepts it, then that's right for their society. I mean, we do that all.
And it's great. It's wonderful, right?
I mean, it's not
society believes it's
wonderful.
true. So
It's not wonderful. There's tons of things like I don't believe in childhood indoctrination. I think children's church is just as bad as other types of childhood indoctrination. I think that that's wrong. Society that
you
I
don't
live.
teach your children. You don't teach your children.
Well, I teach my children, but I don't teach them like a specific religion. So
You don't teach them. You don't teach them no religion.
no, if once they get older, they're young now, but once they get older, I'll try to teach them all the religions or have them decide for themselves because I don't want to. I'm going to make an active effort now. Lightly, it'll probably be a sarcastic active effort, and I'll have to work very hard in order to do it correctly. But ideally, when my children get older, I want to expose them to all the different worldviews because they're not wrong in the sense that they're like you would consider morally wrong. I think they are based on unsound beliefs and unsound principles. But I would also say that I believe that it would be morally wrong for me to guide them and to believe exactly. I believe it would be no different. I would be a hypocrite to lead them to no belief, just as somebody would lead them to belief in a religion.
The moral word again.
Well, I mean, my own personal, not that it's wrong for other people to do it. I guess that's it seems perfectly consistent with me that they should be able to decide for themselves. That seems perfectly consistent.
Well, I don't think anybody does it because you can't force your children to believe anything. You can teach them the way that you believe is true, right? But there is a time when they are going to decide for themselves. And so then a parent would normally, they would arm their children with reasoning and purpose and,
Well, that might be a
why I believe this and that. But
it might be a topic for another debate. I personally think you can teach a children to believe whatever you want them to believe up until a certain age. Now, then, if you limit their exposure, you can solidify it in their beliefs. So I personally think it's actually a physical change in their brain that leads them to believe a certain way. I don't know how you would define it, but I think it's I mean, you can definitely teach people to believe whatever you want if you do it in the right way.
Well, you can teach them, but once they leave your house, they're going to. I mean, you can think of the Westboro Baptists, right? There's a couple of them that have left,
right?
And so, but even through hard indoctrination, and Mormon people leave the very, very strict Mormon cults all the time. So,
and see, to me, the fact that happens is perfectly consistent with an evolutionary worldview, and is not perfectly consistent with a religious worldview.
Well, but they change their mind, right? I mean, they realize that society is the way they think, that within the Westboro Baptist Church, what they believe is right.
But
they
decide
otherwise.
External experiences that change their brain is how I would.
I don't think it's changed. Obviously I would say that they realize more of a natural law, right? And so that kind of gets to what I was talking about with the mind versus the brain.
Right.
What controls the brain? It's the mind. It is these immaterial things that only apply to humans. Animals have instincts. Humans have reason, thought, intelligence, knowledge, absorption.
Well, I mean, we just disagree that animals don't have those things. At least I think I see a difference in scale. You see a difference in kind, and I mean, I just think I don't know that we're going to be able to resolve who's right on that one. I mean, I don't. I think it's merely a difference in scale and ability of a dog or an ape or a dolphin to reason, as it is to a human to reason.
Well, we can think of things like reasoning skills, and laws of reason, law of non-contradiction, right? Versus a dog that you go like this and he'll choose one hand and then he's confused and is the other hand, and then you say, oh, it's not another hand, and then the dog is like, ah, right? He doesn't really know what's going on. But a human would
Right.
say, wait a minute, it has to be in one hand or the other. Law of non, it can't be in both hands at the
But
same time. It must.
there are also dogs that you can train them to pick up 100 different toys by name, and then if you put a toy that is not named and you call a different name that they don't know, they'll go and they'll pick that toy because it's the only one they know that doesn't have a name, even though they've never seen it before. I mean, that's a reasoning skill.
I think it's a lot association. So animals can associate. That's like they said that the chimps learn sign language, right? I think they taught it to chimpanzees and a gorilla. And there's about 5 or 6 animals that have learned sign language. And my contention is they didn't actually learn sign language. They learned associating certain signs with words. Like you couldn't have a conversation with a chimpanzee, right?
I would say
Like
that
we are
there would
having right
be,
now.
well, I would say that there are people that would probably disagree with you. I don't know enough about that, but I know that according to some of the documentaries I've seen, that there are people that say that they could have conversations with chimps that have 300 or 500 words in their sign language. I mean, that seems enough words to have a conversation. They might not be able to talk philosophy, but I mean, would are we able to talk philosophy to another human being whose language that we don't only know 300 words of? No, of course not. So,
Well, you could talk. There is that these chimps didn't go over and say, "Hey, I'd like to learn your language." Right? Only humans do that as well. Only humans try to learn other, like chimpanzees. Dogs don't learn cat language so that they can go converse with cats and try to trap them or something like that, right?
I mean, as far as I know, that there are instances in the wild where one set of monkeys will know the call of another group of monkeys for certain animals. Say a predator animal, they'll know the predator call of a different, completely different species. And so, I mean, that to me is similar of learning their language. I mean, we can just say they recognize
Well,
that call
yeah,
and
I think it's
associate
more
with danger.
association. Yeah.
But what is it? What are we? I mean, what do humans do with language? That's not. It's not just association when we're learning a new language. I mean,
Well, if you have the very, very, very basics, a few words here and there, you can associate airplane with. I speak a couple of Chinese words.
right.
Ija Feiji. Oh yeah, I know what that is. Or not in. Oh yeah, I can say, oh, he's talking about something. I can say, oh, they must be talking about you know uh, a young man. But I don't say, oh, is there a young man around? I can kind of get a little bit more context than I think an animal. Whereas again, they yell, and other animals might realize that there is a predator
Sure, but
of
then
some.
we're talking about you're getting more context. So we're talking about a scale, a difference in scale, not a difference in kind. And to me, that seems perfectly consistent with an evolutionary worldview and inconsistent with particularly a Christian worldview or any religious worldview that makes humans specialized. So it seems to me, I mean, what would you say is the biggest difference that what would you say makes the naturalistic, the atheistic, the evolutionary worldview, whichever? I mean, I think they're all the same. Um, I don't know if you would consider them one differently. I think you can have a naturalist and an evolutionary worldview that is non-atheistic. If you're a deist, you could have a deistic worldview that would be exactly the same as an atheistic worldview if you believed in a prime mover that's hands off. So I mean, I don't think the atheistic part really would make it inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to get a very specific idea here. So I guess, yeah, if you had a deistic, but I don't know if a deistic would fit with a naturalistic worldview, because you still have a god, and yeah, you have a clockmaker type argument. But even then, you're saying there is an external entity that creates a moral law, or could have set forth a moral law. And
well,
so,
I mean, there are definitely deistic versions that are amoral, that they just started, and however they don't set down moral law. So
that's what I was trying to get the idea of a truly pure naturalistic worldview, right?
So how can you have a pure?
That's why I threw the 3 words in there.
But a purely naturalistic worldview results in, as we agreed on, hard determinism, which means that everything we say and do is perfectly determined. So it would be consistent, no matter what we say and do, would be consistent with a true naturalist worldview.
Yeah, essentially. So, but people, again, the idea was people would, even people that would say that wouldn't live, they wouldn't be able to act within that. And I know we're saying that they wouldn't have a choice. They would not act within that, but that would be determined as well.
Yeah.
So, but still, so if we take that little piece away, we just move away from that by a few hairs,
right,
we get into the idea that of how people actually act, right? So people can say, yes, I don't believe that free will exists, because free will wouldn't exist in a naturalistic world. However, people act as if they have free will, and people act as if everybody else has free will, and hence the prisons. They say, well, people chose to do that crime. And again, I would say criminals did. They know that they acted immorally, that they didn't just do something society dislikes. And I would even say that the point of evolution is to continue, right? It's like to progress life, to have the best possible kids, things like that.
I wouldn't say the best possible is. I mean, the point of evolution is just to have having the next generation. So
Yeah.
So evolution just implies that as the pressures outside of us that impact our reproduction change, those of us that are able to reproduce the most, our genes will spread the most. I mean, so it's not that you're working towards anything, or there's anything the best. Like in our current society, we don't have very many evolutionary pressures that stop us from reproducing. So
well, I don't know. Do you watch Law and Order?
I do not. I've seen it. I know the sound.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so they had. I've liked that show for a long time. Like 20 years, I've been watching that. So even though anyways, they had one on a guy committed rape, and he said he couldn't help it. It's genetic,
right?
Hereditary, right? Which seems consistent to me. Like, I mean, it's not their fault. Why can't they? And I would even say that if evolution is trying to, continue on the species, and some women don't want to have kids, and wouldn't evolution be okay with people forcing them to have kids?
Well,
by
evolution is,
criminal, immoral acts.
I mean, I don't think you can think of evolution as being okay or not okay. I mean, would it be consistent?
But I'm being consistent with the evolutionary process, right? I'm going to go out, I'm going to spread my seed, and then by force or by hook or by crook,
Yeah, and we.
Why are you complaining?
It is consistent and predictable using the evolutionary worldview, or the idea that rapists would exist, and rapists do exist. It is not.
It should exist, right? According to, they need to spread their seeds. So
I don't know.
Some women don't want to have kids. They refuse.
Should is a different. I mean, just that they will exist, but is also perfectly consistent with the atheistic worldview and that evolutionary worldview for a society to eliminate those individuals because they cause harm. I mean, even if you could go so far and say what you did, we understand that you think that it's right. We understand you can't control it. It's that it's part of your genes. You didn't do anything wrong, but we're still going to remove you from society and kill you. I mean, that's perfectly consistent with the atheistic worldview, that you don't have to assign morality to the action and just simply, you know, you can still eliminate it and be justified in doing so through evolution, even though they're
Justified?
I mean, it's perfectly consistent